Cool. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another one of our virtual coffee mornings. Cool. I can see you all connecting to your video and things. So that's good. Brilliant. All right, we're all in. So I haven't seen some of you for a wee while, so it's really nice to see you again. And we are joined by some really brilliant speakers today, so I'm really glad that you could come with us. I'll just do a quick, housekeeping, all the normal stuff that we have to do, and a quick introduction, and then we'll get straight into speaking with our experts. Obviously, they know a lot more than I do. So today we're doing our virtual coffee morning on men's health, and thank you for joining us this morning. Just to let you know, the meeting is being recorded and we are going to upload it to our YouTube and our website. So if you're not comfortable to be recorded, just simply turn off your video and then it will just see a blank screen, basically. We have got everyone muted at the moment, just so that we can really hear our speakers really nice and clearly when they're talking about their topics. Of course, as always, you can post your comments or questions or feedback via the chat facility in Zoom. And later we'll have a Q&A where you can also verbally ask your questions. And we do encourage that. So please, if you think of any questions, add them to the chat or be ready to ask them later. But just a reminder, in that chat box, you can ask questions and comments, but please do not post any links or images, as this may mean that we will remove you from the meeting. And then finally, just a reminder that we are active on social media. So for us, it's ARCC Ltd or ARCC Limited on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And if after this you do want someone else to hear and see all the brilliant advice we're going to be getting, then we'll obviously let you know when this video's being released to YouTube. So let me just bring up the agenda, or if anyone else can while I'm talking. Let me just, there we go. So hopefully you can all see that. So just to let you know that we've got 3 speakers today. So we've got Lee Townsend, Thomas Scannell, and Dr. Kuru. And obviously I'll give them a proper introduction just before they speak as well. And then just to let you know that you can see afterwards, we've got that Q&A. So please feel free to ask questions then. Then we'll talk to you about the Expert Patients Programme. And of course, the privilege of coming to a coffee morning with us is that you do get automatically entered into our raffle, where you can win a little coffee hamper, basically, because obviously if we were in person, you would be getting coffee and tea from us. So we're trying to make it as similar to that as possible. So basically today for men's health, I just do want to make it clear that you do not have to be a man, obviously, to be on this call. It is very much going to be applicable to everyone, but also it might be applicable to people in your life. So if you're female, please stay on board, because a lot of it will be cross-gender. And we are putting on this because, and I'm only talking statistically, not for individuals, but it does seem to be a statistical avoidance of doctor and unusual symptoms, and men do tend to ignore it more. So we do really just want to encourage you to schedule your yearly checkups with your doctor, keep those appointments, and just they can help you with things like monitoring your weight, your blood pressure, cholesterol, etc. And obviously they can recommend the lifestyle changes that you might need, or other medications or other treatments. And there are so many brilliant ways to improve your mental, physical, emotional, spiritual health. And our speakers today are going to help identify and explain those to you. So first up, we've got Lee Townsend and Thomas Scannell talking together. And I did just see in the chat that they have got a presentation as well, which is brilliant. So when I pass over to you guys, please feel free to share your screen. So Lee Townsend, he's a community engagement specialist and also a mental health campaigner. He helps professionals build self-confidence through personal coaching. He removes barriers of fear, doubt, and low self-esteem, and Lee's personal experience of struggling with a late diagnosis of attention deficit disorder, dyslexia, and dyspraxia has taught him how to embrace life's challenges. Former hindrances have allowed him to go from striving to thriving, both in his professional aspirations and his relationships with his loved ones. Lee does serve on multiple boards, and he's a trustee for the charity Mighty Men of Valor. He's the chairman of CTIC, which is the Croydon Trauma Informed Community, and also at our own big local Broad Green. He's a happily married father of two, enjoys photography and supports Arsenal Football Club, and also leads several health and wellbeing projects here in Croydon. And he's going to be talking today with Thomas Scannell, who is a childcare practitioner and a men's relationship coach. He's very passionate about helping others become the best version of themselves. He firmly believes that a healthy body can help move each of us closer towards having a healthier mind. He is passionate about health and fitness, which he has embedded into his lifestyle after having struggled with his weight for many years and realizing the impact of this on his own sense of well-being. Through his community project, The Two Local Lads, Thomas supports men and women to engage with each other while participating in cycling, football, jogging, and walking to reduce feelings of isolation while formulating an environment of peer support. So I think you can all agree that we really have got two experts here with us. So I'll pass over to Thomas and Lee, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. That was a great introduction, by the way. Thank you very much. I'm just going to share the presentation quickly. Let me just get that up.
Let me just start by saying it's always a pleasure to participate in any of the projects that the Asian Resource Centre Croydon are running, because we know how entrenched they are in our community and the kind of support that they give to so many people. So we're just so thankful to be here, and we hope that you enjoy this presentation.
So the importance of men's health. Obviously, we don't even need to give an introduction no more because it was so well done already. So thank you very much. Today we're going to be talking about what is health, the journey me and Lee have both been on since kind of meeting each other and talking to each other about our own health and where we was, myths about health men face, where your starting point is, making sure you're keeping track, making the goals smart, and obviously we can have any questions at the end from myself and Lee that we could definitely enjoy helping you on.
So after you've seen that long list, it's a good thing we've been training, because we're going to have to be running through it so we don't exceed the 20 minutes that we have, okay?
Yeah, this is right. So what is health? Well, health is both physical and mental, and they're really strongly connected. So if you're not working on one and letting one degrade, you'll actually find that scientifically it's proven that the mental health will go down if you're not looking after yourself physically, as well as if you're looking after yourself physically and not mentally, you'll really struggle either way. Men's health, I find, is... Go on, sorry, Lee.
Go on, finish, sorry.
I find men's health is not thought about enough. And there is a massive difference between men and females when it comes to health. And this can be attributed to biological factors. It could be our genitalia, the hormones. And also men have a thing about doing a bit more, how can I say it, more active sports where we're a bit more vicious, like rugby, doing activities a bit more. Even though women do take part in these activities, men are more likely to do these activities. And even the jobs that we pick are a bit more physical, a bit more body degrading if we're not looking after ourselves properly.
And even when we start thinking about the jobs that men tend to lean towards as it relates to more mental type jobs, they tend to be very intense. So we're thinking about things like people who are working in the IT sector, banking, and all these type of things. They tend to be quite intense and quite strenuous on your mind. And there's an important point that I want to just raise through this definition from the World Health Association. And it says health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. So we tend to focus a lot on health just being, oh, when you're ill, or the opposite of being ill. If you're healthy, it means that you're not ill. But there's so many small intrinsic areas that we need to consider and bring into play. And if you notice, I said something, not just the physical and mental that Thomas already mentioned, but also our social well-being. So one of the gifts that you guys have who are here today, I'm guessing that you're connected to the ARCC in some way, shape, or form, or you're probably a regular visitor to the monthly coffee mornings. Well, this is a part of your social, and that helps to give you that well-being balance and help you to engage and interact with others, so you don't feel as if you're socially isolated. You don't feel as if you don't have people that you can turn to for support, guidance, or even just someone to just listen to or to have listened to you.
So when we're talking about physical health, a lot of people just think of regular exercise like it's an aesthetic thing, or your body's meant to look in a particular way. But when it likely said health is a lot more than just looking away, it's actually living a specific way. So a well-balanced diet, proper sleep, getting rid of habits or cutting down habits like smoking and drinking, and also your personal hygiene. That's a massive part of your physical health, because the way you smell, the way you look also affects your mental health. So again, it's kind of connected. So physical activity can reduce the risk of loads of diseases, diabetes, cancer, cardiovascular disease. And it's kind of recommended that we do a minimum of 30 minutes of activity every day. But the 30 minutes of activity doesn't necessarily have to be running on a treadmill. It doesn't have to be lifting weights and being an Instagram model. What the 30 minutes can easily be is a 30-minute walk in a park with a friend. It could be doing yoga to a YouTube video by yourself, or finding a community in the community where you can go and participate in conversation as well as exercise, like yoga and meditation, where we can do it mentally.
I think one of the things that we're really lucky with in Croydon is that there's so many different activities that we can access through the various associations. So we know right away the three main capacity buildings being the Asian Resource Centre, Croydon BME Forum, and Croydon Voluntary Action. They have a number of groups that are attached and are all offering something. And I always encourage everyone within the communities to join up to these organisations and sign up for their newsletters, because you'll get some invaluable information about, a lot of times, free opportunities and activities that you can engage in that will help you along that pathway towards a healthier lifestyle.
And then if we go into your mental health, so your mental health is emotional, psychological, and I know Lee said social well-being, but I've actually put social well-being in the mental health. So they are massive factors into your mental health. If you have a social background and feel isolated, like a lot of people have over COVID, it can start bringing us down and making us feel lonely, making us feel like there's no way out, and making us feel trapped. And in turn, like I said, vice versa, it will affect your physical health, because you might not want to go out, or you might start building up anxiety in these situations. So when we're talking about improving our mental health, we need to talk about being able to express ourselves and talk about how we're feeling and asking for help. So many people out there, as Lee's pointed out, there are community organizations that you can go to and talk to. And for me personally, it wasn't until I found someone like Lee and we started creating groups where we could have these conversations that I started being able to open up and feel better in myself.
I didn't realize that grief and bereavement was such a serious issue for our community until recently, when I joined up with some gentlemen who together we co-facilitate something called Men Cry Too. And it's a group where men of color, so whether Asian, Black, African, Caribbean, etc., come together and just share their experiences of death, dying, and bereavement. And it gives us a chance to be in a safe space, to speak freely. And it's just amazing how much that impacts our week going forward. So we've had sessions where, even, and because it's peer support, there's no real leader per se, but there are 4 co-facilitators. We've had situations where facilitators have broken down in tears, in stuff as if, and we know how these things go. Somebody passes away, let's be real. Struggles and the interface over the legacy that's been left by that person that's bereaved. The family member who feels as if, why is everyone coming around now? And when the person was sick and dying, I was the one that was cleaning them up and doing everything. And we get emotional around these periods of time. So to actually have a space where you can speak freely about what you're going through makes the world of a difference. And I found that a lot of the walking groups that are generating in Croydon lately, I've seen there's a new one started for men who are going through depression or anxiety that walk around one of the local parks. And one of the things is just being in a non-judgmental space with people who have common understanding about respect is huge difference. And you find that when you've been able to let go of that steam and that pressure that you're under, your week progresses in a different way. So sometimes one of the stumbling blocks for us, and Thomas said it so well a while ago, where he spoke about that balance, where if your mental health, if it's not in a good place, it's going to start affecting your physical health and vice versa. So one of the wonderful things is that when you've been in these spaces, you're able to talk freely and share what you're going through or what you're possibly sets you up for the week ahead, the other things that you need to do. So for someone like myself who always hated cycling, I've been able to work my way up over the last year and a half. I think it's 2,500 kilometers for 250 for a local chapter. But I think that because I've been getting my mind in the right place by going to these groups where I could share and speak to people like Thomas and others, it's allowed me to be able to move forward in small, tiny steps as it relates to my physical health. And I think that's one of the key things that we'd like to highlight today.
Is that Lee's connection, isn't it? Not mine.
Sorry to stop you, Lee. Your sound is really poor. Thomas, are you having the same issues?
Yeah, I can't hear Lee. I've tried to message you.
Yeah, I did send him a personal message, but I'm not sure if he's seen it.
Is that
Lee?
any better? Can you hear me now?
Carry on talking.
No, I'm sorry, Thomas. You might have to go ahead without me to know what's happening.
No worries, no worries, no worries. Thank you, Lee. Thank you very much. So when we go on to the journey, so obviously, I think people sometimes look at people in their part of their journey where they're at the end or they're better than somebody. And me to the left was me last year before COVID. And Liz asked me how am I feeling? And I said, I'm feeling amazing. And that's because on that day, I felt good on that day. And I didn't realize where I was until a year, 18 months later, where I was able to say, you know what, Thomas, and look back and like, I wasn't healthy. It takes you time and then incremental gains because we're all at a point in our lives now where we think we're at our best. But I can tell you now, when you decide to make that step, whether it be socially, emotionally, or physically, to open yourself up and be coached, be trained, and find someone to hold you accountable, that's when you're really ready for the journey to take that step. So they likely said there's so many organizations you can turn to and actually have these conversations with and give you a clear path to success. Because I didn't understand me personally. Last year, I didn't like bike riding. I didn't like running. All I liked doing was standing in one place, eating hamburgers and drinking beer. Like it was the best thing in the world to do. And I didn't realize how much of an impact it had on playing with my children. Like now, a year later, like I said, in the journey, by starting it, I can compete, I can look after my children. And as my children grow older, my oldest child is 21 and he has grandchildren, I'm hoping to be able to take that into their life as well. So I can't tell you what's going to happen tomorrow, but I plan for the future. And the future is for me to be at my best, my physically healthiest, my emotionally healthiest, as much as possible. And even starting my journey spiritually, looking at different forms of religion, different teachings to open me up and so I can understand myself as well as everyone else. So it's all a journey that you just need to decide that I want to make this start. And whether it be that you go to a walk or you join us in Jog and Jam, where we go for a half hour, whatever distance possible, go back and have a conversation and talk about how you're feeling to get you on that journey like I did. We all start somewhere and you just got to get over that fear of participating. And that's exactly what I had. I didn't want to do certain things because I was scared of failing. And I feel men have that. Whereas if I can't compete at a certain level, I won't take part. And another thing that I find men have, because I deal with quite a lot of men on a daily basis, is that men have a thing where we feel we can do anything we want to do at any time. It's almost like our ego. So we feel when I was in that position, my brother asked me to do something. I said I can do anything. He asked me to do something and I failed, fell flat on my face. And that's where like I realized if I want to really participate in this game of life, I actually need to start competing with people, not people, myself. I need to start making myself better on a day-to-day basis. So when we're talking about health, I'm going to talk specifically about physical here. There's a lot of myths. And I think this is what puts a lot of people off. Like the idea that if you go to the gym or if you're training, if it's not sore, if you're not aching at the end of a training session, it didn't work. All you have to do is exert yourself, is slightly start sweating, breathe heavily. And every time you breathe heavy or push yourself to some sort of exertion, you will improve yourself. Getting sore is all soreness is going to do is make you feel, I don't want to go back to the gym. And the amount of time, don't get me wrong, when you get into that mindset, you will appreciate the soreness, but sometimes it's a negative thing. So don't look for soreness, just look for improvement. Yet today you did a kilometer in 10 minutes. Tomorrow you try and do it in 9:59. It's not a thing that you're doing you're not trying to break a marathon. You're trying to actually go slowly, see yourself change over time. Again, something that I was told and I believe myself, as men get older, we're going to lose muscle mass. That's scientifically disproven. We're not going to lose muscle mass. What we do is stop working as hard. So again, when I was a younger Thomas, 25 years old, I could lift XYZ weight and I could push all day long. At 37, I'm not that same person. So I need to adjust my body and my training routine for that new me. So don't try to live up to the standards that you set yourself previously. Learn that your body changes over time and don't compete with anyone else. Be your own person.
Are you able to hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. You back, Lee, yeah?
Okay, I think there's a slight delay. So I was just going to say that on the same point that you were just raising, that you might be running distances 5 years ago, or maybe even this year, but next year you might be thinking about either reducing the amount of distance that you're running or walking a little bit further than the distance you used to run as opposed to running, because our bodies are not necessarily up to that anymore. But it doesn't mean that you can't exercise in at all. But as Thomas was saying, it's just about adjusting our routine and doing something that's adapting a regime that fits in with where our body is currently and what we are able to do. And that's why it's so important not to try and keep up with the Joneses. You've got to find the exercising program that is fit for your body and where you are, as opposed to what John Paul or Michael Patel or whoever it may be is that's doing something.
Yeah. This is a bit more about mental, because sometimes us as men feel like anything that we come across, we can just do it ourselves and get over the hurdle by ourselves without expressing ourselves. And that was something I held on to for many years. And it wasn't until I was ready, like I said, to find people that I can talk to, other men and other groups where I can say how I'm feeling, that I've really recovered from trauma, from over grieving. I didn't appreciate grieving, like Lee said, until I was able to accept that somebody had passed away. I just thought, just sweep it under the cover. But when you find these spaces, then you to talk to and express yourself, you can really recover from these situations and grow from them rather than holding them in and making it hold you back.
And as we're destroying myths, there's nothing wrong with admitting that something's hard or you feel like you can't do it. You know, there's no shame in it, and we sometimes think that other men are going to laugh or maybe turn their nose up us or look down on us, but you'd be surprised to see how much support there is in our male-dominated communities once we are open and start sharing. And I think Thomas and I deliver a workshop called Snowball Impact. And I think it's a case of it just needs one person to start that snowball rolling, and then you'll see everything start growing. So when that one man says, this is what I'm struggling with, you're frightened to see how many others have that situation. Just a quick example. We started a group called Jog and Jam where we'd run around the park because slow is the weakest link. And there was one gentleman that came, I don't know, he must have weighed about 25 stone. And he was really struggling with making it around the park. And he shared his struggle with us, almost to the point of tears. And we just said, bro, when I started, and everyone was laughing at me, but when I started, all I did was complain going around that park, and I'd stop, and Thomas would be with me just saying, look, we're not stopping, we're gonna walk, and then we'll jog again when you can. And we started to build up. Over 6 months, we got to the point where that gentleman was able to run around the park all the way around slowly, to the extent where he started going out by himself and was running around it 2-3 times by himself. And that's a kilometer for each lap. So that's 3 kilometers by himself. So once we start sharing, we'll be surprised that we can overcome, and there's no weakness in it.
Yeah. And the last myth, obviously there's tons of myths, but the last myth I picked, what works for women as well as men, is you can't lose fat in one specific area. Like stop targeting, I want to just lose weight in my abs. Health is about your whole body and how you're feeling in general, not about having a six pack, not about your bum, not about your thighs. It's not about the aesthetic. It's about how you're feeling, about your body being functional, about your mind being free. So let's not focus on one area. Let's focus on our lifestyles in general. Starting out. So when you're starting out on your journey of health, there's certain things that you should look onto just to make it more easy for you to achieve. So rather than going out and saying you want to be a CrossFit king, let's start with hobbies and interests, what you enjoy. Like myself and Lee said, when we started our journey, it was about me and Lee would go for a walk every morning. We'd have a conversation every morning. Then we decided to jog every morning. Then it became to, you know what? Why don't other people get involved in what we're doing? Cycling, the same sort of thing. Don't try and reinvent the wheel. Start with something that you enjoy and you find comfortable, and then you can start experiencing new things as you feel comfortable and ready to make that change.
When we speak about finding a professional, I think it's about looking at someone who's more skilled than yourself, who can give you that help. And it's invaluable. The money that you will save or the pain from working with a professional far exceeds what you're going to do from a trial and error routine. So we're talking about avoiding the straining of muscles or pushing yourself too hard and making yourself sick unnecessarily. Although Thomas and I run so many different things and engage in so many things, we still lean on others for help. So there's an online program that we follow, working with Dr. Damo, Super Dads, and he's someone who guides us with nutritional routines, exercises, pushes us so that we're not doing too little and that we're certainly not doing too much. But in addition to that, we've even taken out membership at a local gym. So at 5 o'clock most mornings, well, maybe Thomas more than me, but at 5 o'clock most mornings, we're in the gym where we're getting professional support and able to use professional facilities. So sometimes you do have to spend a bit of money, but I ask the question, what's more important, having earthly possessions or having a healthy body and mind?
Very true. And I just want to say a big thing is take your time. You're not trying to be Usain Bolt. You're not trying to be Cristiano Ronaldo. You're trying to be yourself. You're trying to be the best version of who you can be. So when we're dealing with fitness and health, you're not competing against anybody. You just want to be 1% better than what you was yesterday. So take your time, relax into it.
You know, that's why it's so important to seek professional help and advice and do your research. A lot of people are saying YouTube channels, but you need to be careful what YouTubers you're watching, because not everybody who's professing themselves to be an expert actually is one. So when we say take your time and have a professional, you want to be going at a rate that is appropriate for you. And based on your health conditions and where you are at the stage in your life is going to determine how much exercises you can do and what particular exercises you can actually engage in for your own safety. Because there's going to be, all of us have a tipping point. There's going to be a point where our body says, no, this is it. We've reached the final level. We can celebrate that and be thankful, but we need to make sure we don't go beyond that, because that's when we can do ourselves the most harm.
Yeah. Keeping track of results. So this is one of the things, when you're keeping track of results, it really gives you encouragement to carry on, because sometimes when you're looking at yourself in the mirror, if you wait a month in between or you're tracking weight, you don't see a difference. So keeping a diary of what you're achieving, so you can look back at 3 weeks ago, oh my God, I made a 1% increase there, helps out so much with your confidence and how you're feeling about yourself. Because like I said, at times I feel disheartened, like that was a rubbish training session today. But then when I look back at the diary or look back at my catalog of exercises, oh my day, I might have had a bad day today, but that's because yesterday I improved on the previous week. So my body's not feeling so tired, feeling a bit tired today because it's worked out a bit more yesterday. So keeping yourself tracking yourself at all times and making sure that you know how well you're doing, uplifts you to keep the journey going.
I see we're running out of time, but just a quick thing on the diary. In addition to this tracking what you're actually doing in terms of your exercise, I'd like to encourage you to also put 3 things that you've achieved in a given day in that same diary log. Because sometimes we're just focusing on the physical activity, but there's also other strains. There's also other challenges that we face. So 3 positive things that we could put, for example, or things that we're thankful for, I should say. I'm thankful for the fact that I can choose what I want to have for my breakfast or lunch and dinner today because I have sufficient food in my cupboard. 2, I'm thankful for my friends. 3, I'm thankful that I made the mortgage payment. whatever it is, because when times get hard and you feel as if you're under strain mentally or physically, when you're looking back and reflecting on the things that you're thankful for, it kind of gives you a bit of wind under your wings that you can soar as an eagle and fly, knowing that all is possible, that I can achieve because I've achieved before. Accountability. I don't think there's anything more important, because it's one thing to say I'm going to do it, but it's a second thing for somebody that you trust and respect to say to you, look, you said you're going to do this, mate, and I'm not letting you give up. And just having that accountability partner, it could be your partner, wife, husband, whatever it may be, or it could be a friend or even your coach possibly. But it's really important to have that person who kind of just reminds you of the commitments that you made. Tom?
Mobile platforms. So there's loads of mobile platforms that you can download as apps now. Very simple to use. Strava is activity tracking. MyFitnessPal for food. Samsung and Apple also offer their own fitness things that are very simple to use. You can wear a watch and it tracks your movements, or just keep your phone on you.
So there's no excuses now, because there's so many projects in Croydon for older people, helping them to use digital devices. So if you need help, just check in with ARCC, and I'm sure they'll direct you to somewhere, or the big local Broad Green drop-in or shop. We can assist you with finding which apps work and which ones can help you out.
This is kind of a specific thing that I learned the other day, life insurance. So my life insurance provide me with different covers of care as they're tracking my activity levels and my weight levels. So like I said, at the beginning of last year, I took out a new policy for my life insurance. It was £100 a month. Now, 18 months in, my policy is down to £50 a month, because I brought my weight down, I brought my cholesterol, I brought my BMI down. So it has positive effects on you by taking your weight down. So you're financially gaining something there just by being more active.
And weekly weight and pictures. Now, this is something that Tom is a little bit better at me at, better than I am, even though I'm the photographer. But when you take these weekly pictures, you don't see anything when you look at the pictures at first glance. But when you go 3 months in and you look back at where you've gone in that journey, and if you can put it up in a slideshow and you play it through, it's almost like a film, especially if you're taking it in the same space, the same distance, and you'll see how you evolve. Almost like when they show these pictures of evolution where the monkey becomes the man, you see where this big, enormous person, especially in my case, becomes this person who slims down, becomes more slender, more toned, and you find that you have a greater appreciation for this vessel that you live in.
Smart. Lee kind of touched on this at the beginning, which was no, we didn't. We didn't talk. So let me take that back. Smart goals, making everything specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. So I'll start with specific. So rather than just saying I want to lose weight, what is the weight you want to lose? Where do you feel comfortable? What is it? Go to a doctor, talk to a professional. Where should I be? What is recommended for me to lose? Because just saying I want to lose weight gives, again, accountability, because if you lose a pound, you're happy, where you might actually want to lose more, and then track that.
Measurable. So it's important that the goals that you set for yourself are something that you can measure. So I'm going to walk 100 meters. You can measure that quite easily. Not with a tape measure, I wouldn't recommend, but with a device on your watch, etc., or using Google Maps. It's quite good at giving you distances and terrains and that kind of a thing as well. So that can be really helpful. But setting your goals for yourself is where you want to be. So perhaps you might say, okay, currently I can't walk from West Croydon down to Surrey Street Market. So I'm going to start by trying to make it up to Marks and Spencer's and extend that. And over the next 3 months, I want to be able to walk it all the way down to Croydon Market, Surrey Street Market from West Croydon, without building up a sweat.
Attainable. A lot of the time we make goals that are unattainable. And you know what? I can talk from so much experience because I've tried everything. I used to set myself goals that were ridiculously unachievable. So before I went onto this journey with a coach, I would say I wanted to be the strongest man in the UK. But how am I going to be the strongest man in the UK? I don't have a clue where to start. I don't have no one to think. I'm getting older. So talk to somebody, work out what is attainable for you to actually reach, especially in a time frame, because otherwise disheartenment, when that sets in, for me personally, I was comfort eating, comfort drinking, and all the progress that I'd made over a 3-month period where I didn't hit my goals that weren't attainable was lost because I just throw them away, being disheartened by the reality of things. Realistic. I'll carry on. Realistic.
So,
It's sad to say none of us are going to be as good as Lionel Messi at football. We're not going to be as quick as Usain Bolt running. We're not going to swim. We're not even going to win a marathon race anytime soon, unless there's someone special in here that I don't know. So sorry if there is. But let's make it realistic. Let's incremental gains. The snowball effect Lee was talking about. Let's go for half a second. Let's go for 1 pound. Let's go for a little bit of weight. Let's go for a walk a little bit further. Let's make it realistic to what we can achieve personally, and not worry about what the person to the left or the right of us is doing.
an example of that, I hear Thomas talking about registering for a half marathon. I couldn't even do a quarter marathon. I know my limits. So I'm happy jogging around Ashburton Park, and hopefully I'll be able to add a couple more laps to what I can do currently. And that's good enough for me.
You'll be doing a half marathon with me soon, don't worry. But but also time bound. Like sorry again, I keep bringing myself into it. My wedding is on July the 24th. My goal was July 24th. So for me to do that, like everything, give me a time set. I knew if I didn't achieve that goal, then not that I was a failure, but I knew I had to be specific, which was I wanted to be 100 kilograms. It was measurable because I knew the weight that I had to lose, and I knew what time frame I had to do it. It was attainable. It wasn't too unhealthy for me to lose that much weight in that time. So it was more than doable if I kept to a certain calorie content and kept up a certain amount of activity. It was realistic. I give myself a year. If I couldn't do it in a year, I don't know what I would have done. And the time was set, July 24th. So look how simple that was, just to put together a yearly plan. And this is what you're going to do. Now you track yourself with an app, with what you're eating, what activities you're doing. And we have a plan. Like I said, don't take that plan now, but that's the start of a plan being put together. So, is everyone frozen? Lee's frozen.
No, I'm still here.
Oh,
Waiting for you to slide.
Move to the next slide. Sorry. That's it.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Thomas and Lee. Like, you gave us so much more than I was expecting. You really went into specifics as well, which I do find is really useful for these sorts of things, because when it gets too broad, sometimes it can be a bit difficult to know exactly what to take away from it. So thank you. What we'll do is we'll let, if anyone has any like very, very specific questions for Thomas and Lee, like because it's them, they need that specific question, then you can ask a few now. But we will also be doing a more general Q&A with Dr. Kuru, Thomas and Lee after our second speaker as well. So if anyone has like a really specific question now, please put your hand up, or put the, what's the other one? It's like a little artificial yellow hand that you can put up on the Zoom screen. But please just keep it really brief to Thomas and Lee, because I do want to get Dr. Kuru talking very, very soon. So does anyone have a specific question? Cool. Or are you all happy to wait till the Q&A section? Brilliant. I can see that you're saying, yes, we're happy to wait. That's very good, very polite of you. So that's really nice, because it means we can get our second speaker going. And Thomas and Lee, are you happy to wait for our Q&A section?
Yeah, I'm happy to wait, yeah.
Brilliant, because I've seen in the chat that there are quite a few questions that have come through for you, so I know that people are going to want you to hang around.
Yeah, I'm just going to quickly run in. I'll put myself on mute. I'm going to quickly run and get a drink.
No problem, that's fine. So we're really, really lucky to be joined by Dr. Kuru today. She's been a GP in South London for 9 years, and she's currently a Deputy Medical Director for the Hurley Group, and she works in Kennington and Vauxhall. She is very passionate about community health, and she uses her experience in primary care to advocate, support and empower people in the community to think more about care, to think about and care more for their health. So we're so happy to have you here. Thank you. So are you able to talk about your head to toe approach to health?
Yeah, so I kind of modified it a little bit, but it's still the same thing. But thank you for a great talk. I was taking a few notes, and I think you've covered most of it. I don't know how much you actually need me today, but I'll share my screen and hopefully that should work. All right, so everyone can see my screen, yeah? So my name's, well, the short version is Dr. Kuru, but the full name's Dr. Wakaru Nwogugu. My husband is somewhere in the background. He's at work. He's Dr. Daniel Osigbe. So he might interject if he wants to add to what I'm saying. He's also a GP and he works in the Streatham area. So I've got a few hats. So I work for the NHS, as you mentioned, but I also work alongside some community groups, 52 Medics. We're a charity associated with Ascension Trust, and we do a lot of work and collaboration in the community. We're doing some work with NHS in South East London at the moment around vaccine confidence. I'm also part of a local church. I'm part of RICC, which is based in Croydon. And I also do some work with Croydon BME from time to time. So we're in talks about doing something around mental health. So completely agree with the importance of community health. And that's really been my focus over the last year. It's kind of bringing what we do in primary care to the community. There is a really great need to improve health in the community. So to pick up on some of the points that have been raised. I mean, my talk is around something called atherosclerosis. Basically, it's just blocked vessels. And the reason why it's important and why it relates to a top-to-toe approach is what I'll go ahead and talk about going forward. So the first thing I wanted to mention was that the NHS website is a brilliant resource of valid and reliable and up-to-date information. You just go to nhs.uk and you can go to, there's health A to Z. There's so much information. There's information about exercises. I use it to share links about medication that I'm going to share with patients. So when you're going to get information about your health, please do go to reliable resources. Like the team mentioned before, you know, if you're going on YouTube to get advice about nutrition, for example, or even exercise, make sure that it's a reliable place that you're going to, because it will be really impacts on what you're going to do. So in terms of a top-to-toe approach, why am I so concerned about blood vessels? Well, blood vessels are the route by which all of our important nutrients get to where they need to go. So obviously in blood, we've got oxygen, there's lots of other important nutrients within them that we need for healthy growth, to just keep everything pumping. So think about it like the petrol in a car. If you don't have the right petrol going to the right place, or there's a blockage in some of the fuel pumps somewhere, your car is not going to move, or it's not going to move very effectively. So I've put up here, this is a common slide that you can see on the internet, and it talks about the major complications of diabetes. The major complications of diabetes overlap a lot with complications of high blood pressure and complications of any kind of heart problem, because it all relates really to the blood flow. So if we think about our head, if we've got poor blood flow to the head, this can increase our risk of things like strokes, because we might either have reduced blood flow to the brain, or the important blood vessels that supply our brain can get blocked. Obviously, we know that strokes can impact us greatly. My father recently passed away after having quite a major stroke, and it can be so significant that it can take your life suddenly, or it can really impact on your life significantly. Fortunately, we're in this country where they can do amazing work with intervention, and we know that there's been lots of awareness on the TV and on adverts that you might have seen on buses about FAST, and just making sure you seek help straight away if you think you might be having a stroke. So if you notice that there's any facial drooping, if you notice you can't lift your arm, if you notice there's any slurred speech, you need to get help straight away. These might be signs of a stroke and having something affecting the blood flow to your brain. The other things we think about are sometimes when you have reduced blood flow to the brain, it will impact on your memory, it can impact on your mood and your general well-being. Some people will have kind of sluggish thinking, it can affect fatigue. So it's really important to make sure we do things that keep our blood flow to our brain going. Our heart is obviously really important. It's the main motor that pumps all of our nutrients around our body, and it really closely related to our blood pressure. So the muscles of our heart are just soft chambers normally, and there's 4 chambers that we have, and they coordinate together to pump heart around the body and to pump blood around the body and to pump it back in. And basically over time, if we have high blood pressure, it makes these muscles in the heart really thick, and it can make them really stiff. And it means that if they're really stiff and really thick, they're just not going to pump as well as they should do. Therefore, your heart's not going to pump as efficiently as it needs to. And therefore, you get this kind of interruption in the blood flow that should be going round. When these happen near the heart, obviously this can lead to things such as heart attacks, or some people can have something called angina, and that can lead to chest pain, breathlessness, and lots of different problems, because if the blood flow isn't going around your heart properly, you get this kind of backup system, and you can get fluid that backs up into your lungs, that backs up into your legs, and can cause a load of other problems as well. We have blood flow to what we call our extremities. So just think of it as your fingers, your feet, your hands, your arms, your legs. And if you've obviously got reduced blood flow to any of these areas, then, sorry, I've just got my mum asking me questions. So if you've got reduced blood flow to these areas, these can lead at an extreme to things such as amputations or pain, and these can impact on your well-being greatly. So these are kind of big blood vessels that we've got going on. That's why they're called macro. Macro means big, vascular meaning vessels. We've got microvessels, microvascular problems, which are small vessel problems. And you can have the same blockages and reduced blood flow affecting things such as your vision in your eye, can affect your kidney. And we talk about neuropathy, so affecting your nerves as well. So sometimes these things are obvious and you can see them, like if you have a big stroke, then you can see what happens. And if you have impacted vision, you can tell if you can't see as well. But sometimes people have things going on, for example, in their kidneys, and because they can't feel it per se, you won't necessarily get kidney pain, you won't necessarily know what's going on. They may not address it. But our kidneys are really important filters. They essentially filter out all the toxins that we have in our body. So we get lots of nutrients that go through. It decides what it's going to keep and what it's going to send out. If our kidneys start to fail, it becomes like a sieve that's got lots of holes in it, and things that shouldn't go through do go through, and it starts to keep things that it shouldn't. And it can cause a lot of problems that just increase our risks of stroke, risks of heart problems, risks of blood pressure, risk of problems with our extremities. So it's just important to just keep all of these things healthy by looking after our blood vessels, which I'll talk about a bit later. And one of the things that's not on this slide, and which I'll talk about because it's men, it's genitalia. So one of the most common things that men don't talk about when they come to their GP, or really kind of, maybe they'll talk about something else and really they do mean that they've got problems with erections or difficulties with sexual performance. And this is usually very closely related to, again, these vessel problems. So the same vessel problems that can cause you to have a stroke will be the same vessel problems that can cause you to have problems with erections, because it requires blood flow. So it's really important to try and keep healthy because it impacts on every part of your body from your head to your toe. So this is a bit of medical school explanation, but why we care about the blood vessels, I hope you can see this is a cross section through a blood vessel and what can happen when you have a buildup of fat basically over time. So initially you can have a little bit of fat, and we get good fats and bad fats, and we all need a little bit of fat to keep going. It's our energy source. It's not a bad thing. The bad thing is when we let it accumulate too much, and we let it accumulate too much by eating the right things, not exercising, drinking the wrong things. These things will all lead to what we call plaque formations and the buildup of basically fat within your blood vessels. So the body is usually quite forgiving. You know, we do things over 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, and we don't notice the difference. And if we look at the screen from left to right, you can kind of see like a mountain that's growing. And what happens over time is that you get fat layers that start to deposit into the blood vessels. The fat itself can traumatize the blood vessels. And if you have something like blood pressure, that can be an added problem. You start to get breaks in the blood vessels. So therefore the blood vessels aren't protected from the shear forces and the movement of blood through the vessel. And then over time that causes more problems, and you start to get muscles that within the blood vessels that start to replicate and get thicker and then get stiffer. And then over time you can have so much plaque or so much fat that has formed in your blood vessel that you only have a tiny little space through which blood flow can form. And in that space you might start to get blood clots or other types of fatty clots, which can break off from that small area and go off somewhere else. And then you can have a problem where you've had a buildup of fat in one area of the body, but now it's breaking off and causing blockages in other areas. And these are the problems that can lead again to strokes, and problems with blood pressure and problems with heart attacks as well. So it's really important to try and prevent this progression from a little bit of fat in the body that's really nice and reversible, to kind of end problems which are really difficult to reverse unless you have something like surgery to intervene. So this is just another cross section, just to say that narrowed or blocked blood vessels, they just cause problems. And the thing is, you can't see it. So when I was a junior doctor, I used to work in bariatric surgery. So I used to help assist with surgical procedures when people were overweight and wanted some kind of intervention to help them reduce it. And what we noticed was that patients would come in very, very overweight. It's not an easy thing to get into bariatric surgery. You usually have to go through 1 year to 2 years of intensive therapy. You have to actually put some work in first. You need to demonstrate that actually you're willing to try and lose weight, and they'll give you a percentage target. And the team before talks about SMART targets. They'll give you a target of weight that you need to reduce, and if you don't reduce it, they won't enter you into surgery. They'll go through different procedures, so they'll try medication first, and everything else in surgery really is a last resort when it comes to losing weight. And patients would come in and they would be very overweight, and they would have things such as diabetes and even high blood pressure. And you would go into surgery and you would see the reason why you'd want them to lose weight. One, it makes it a better surgery for them with better outcomes. But one of the things my job used to be was to move the liver out of the way. And when you open someone up and you can see the liver, and when they're being overweight because of poor health lifestyle, you can just see the amount of fat that coats the liver. And you find that the liver, instead of being nice and soft, is very stiff and difficult to move and move out of the way. And a stiff, fatty liver makes for difficult surgery. So you can have these layers of fat that you can't see necessarily on the outside, because sometimes people are like, look, I'm not overweight, I'm fit, and I'm fit enough, I'm not, they're measuring by kilos and using that as a guide to how healthy they are, but you can't account for what you can see on the outside, on the inside. And when the guys were talking before about, start small, do a walk, do 10 minutes, build up to 30 minutes. Again, sometimes you don't feel that difference on the outside. Your kilos may not necessarily change. You can't see it visually, but actually what's happening on the inside are those layers of fat are reducing a little bit. The fat around your liver, the fat around your kidneys, it's making a massive difference. That means if your liver's not as stiff, it will function a bit better, you'll feel a bit better, your body will work a bit better. So don't go by the fact of, oh, I can't see a massive difference, I haven't dropped 10 kilos, therefore it's not working. Healthy lifestyle always works. It's the absolute best medicine for absolutely everything. So in terms of interventions, we get a lot of, obviously, patients in surgery, and you have to bear in mind that when you go and see a doctor, a professional, even they were mentioned, you may go and see a coach, just think about it. How long are you going to be with that person for? So if you're in a GP surgery, you might have an appointment for like 10 minutes or 20 minutes or so. And you have to think that's going to be 20 minutes out of your day. You're not going to see that person every week. So you're going to take that information away. It's no longer that doctor or that coach's responsibility to help you, if you get what I mean. You have to take that information away and do something. So when we have these talks and we're talking to you about do 10 minutes walk, do half an hour walk, you actually have to do it. And some people say that it's hard, and I, for myself, I know it's really easy to, I do think in some ways we do make a lot of excuses. I came to the point where I was telling patients that, oh, your cholesterol is a bit high, you just need to eat healthily, reduce your, the amount that you're eating, swap out some of the oils that you're using in your food, do some exercise, join the gym. But I hadn't joined the gym. So what I did recently, although my goal was not to lose weight, it was simply to get fitter. And I had to make that point when I went to the gym, because they were asking me about my goals. I was like, I just want to be fit. I want to be able to do X, Y, Z. So I joined the gym and started to do that regularly. And I'm no weightlifter. I can't run a marathon yet, but I'm sure if I worked up to it, I could do. But I feel a lot better. Not only physically, but mentally, it helps a lot as well. So, whenever you get advice, whether it be medication, whether it be a guide of how much to run, whatever it is, you've got to do something about it. It's no one else's responsibility when you leave. I remember a woman I spoke to during lockdown about her diabetes, and she was on medication. She didn't want to increase her medication. She didn't want to add anything to it. And I'm like, look, I'm a doctor. I can give you more medication, but actually what you can do about this diabetes is exercise and change your lifestyle. And she says, oh, no, because of lockdown, we can't exercise. And I was like, it's not the case. And we know it's not the case because it was during lockdown that I discovered that I've got a national park near me. And at the beginning of lockdown, not so much now, started some jogging. So I think we need to be realistic about what we're doing and realize that it's the onus is really on ourselves to make changes. They've again mentioned before, you have to make healthy lifestyle choices and kind of just realize the impact of what you're doing to your body, and again, accept responsibility for it. So stop smoking. It's not easy for everyone to do. So some people stop smoking, and I know I speak to a lot of patients who have mental health, for example, and we have to have a realistic discussion because sometimes they're choosing that time in their life to actually deal with their crisis. And again, the team spoke before about actually you don't have to bear the brunt of everything. It's okay to share a problem. It's okay not to be okay. And they've taken that time to maybe address their mental health, and then is not the right time for them to stop smoking for them. So we're realistic. This is not about doing things that you cannot achieve or you're not going to be able to maintain, but reducing smoking definitely helps your blood vessels. Healthy eating, so dietary changes. I personally am not a fan of diets or fad diets or whatever the latest crazes may be. Everyone's a bit different. But what I found over the years is that people, they start diets and then they don't maintain them. I've got a family member who literally maybe every month is on a different type of diet. Do things which are realistic. If you make small changes, you realize that over time you're able to maintain them. So I had a family member who visited me recently who usually would have tea with lots of milk and lots of sugar, but she has diabetes. So her family started to restrict how much she took. So she used to have like 4, I think, spoons of sugar in her tea. So she went down to reduced it by like a half, and then kept on reducing it till now she doesn't have any sugar in her tea and she doesn't notice any different. But it took a long time to get there. Make small changes that you can achieve. This is not about doing something that's unachievable. And again, don't compare yourself to other people because everybody is in a really different place. And don't compare your numbers to other people. You can weigh X amount, someone can weigh 10 kilos less, but you don't know what's going on in the background. So just do what's realistic for you. Yeah. Healthy weight loss. Again, I'm not a fan of crash diets. I know people go, you mentioned, I think it's Lee, I don't know, who's getting married on the 24th of July, and you'll do it over a period of time and it's healthy. But if you started now and you said, you weighed 150 kilos and you're giving yourself to the 24th of July to get down to 100, it's not a healthy drop. So you need to think about what you're doing, give yourself realistic targets, and bear in mind that sometimes you won't hit those targets because life happens, and it's okay. It's just about reassessing yourself, but I'm all about healthy weight loss that you can maintain. Again, reduce alcohol intake. We have a lot of people in Lambeth that drink excesses of alcohol, and the same would be for Croydon areas. It's important to reduce alcohol intake because it contains so much fat and it contains so much sugar. It's not nutritious at all. So everything in moderation. Just think about alcohol intake. And again, there's lots of resources for helping people who either have addictions to alcohol or smoking or other drugs, or just find it really difficult to reduce. There's lots of resources out there that can help you to reduce if you want to. And I think my number one, and if I was to pick one out of everything that anyone should do, it is exercise. It is cheap and it is very, very, very effective. So there isn't any condition that exercise doesn't work for. It's just about doing what suits your condition. So again, like I mentioned, my father had a major stroke, and for a long time he was bedbound. And even though he couldn't run and he couldn't, pick up weights or anything like that. Little things like just moving his arm, you know, making him sit up or move his leg, or just do little things help to keep him active, helps to maintain movements in the joints. So common things that people suffer from in older age groups are things like arthritis now. And arthritis, unfortunately, it's not a reversible condition. It's managed, and it's managed with exercise, and it's managed with pain relief, and not everyone likes medication. So the main thing is just to keep moving. I don't think there's any condition, unless someone can tell me, that exercise doesn't work for. A lot of the community centres or the community gyms do reduced subscriptions. If you have low income, for example, and can't afford to go to the gym, there are increasingly more and more outdoor gyms as well. But again, you can just keep it simple. Go for a walk, go for a jog, get some earphones in, put some good music on. Another thing you can do is just in the house, just run up and down your stairs. So many different ways to exercise that that I don't think we should limit ourselves. And again, another thing that the guys before mentioned was, again, like, plan for your future. So, you know, exercise needs to be a culture. If you don't do it, your children won't do it, your kids, you know, your family around you won't do it. It's really addictive. So I think one of the things that really stuck out to me is that when I think of my community, the Black community, exercise isn't always a big thing, and I'm generalizing here for everyone. So I will be in a group and we might talk about the favorite foods we're going to eat. When I tend to be with my other colleagues, my non-Black colleagues, they talk a lot about the next half marathon they're going to run, or the goal that they have in the gym, or the cycling that they're going to do, because it's very much a lifestyle. And it's not like, I'm going to do this marathon and then that's it for the next 10 years. It's very much inbuilt to what they do every day. So try and build exercise into something that's normal, because it really makes a difference. I always use my parents as an example. They were, you know, they were born in Nigeria, and they always say to me, "Oh, I didn't do exercise when I was younger." Actually, they did, because they did farming and they would walk, because the transportation system isn't the same as it was here, and they would do a lot of carrying and cleaning around the house. And these are activities that we've reduced now to, maybe we'll hoover a little bit, we'll do a short walk and we'll get on a bus and then we'll get on a tube. We definitely don't do a lot of farming anymore. So we just need to think about our lifestyles. I, as a GP, I sit down from 8:30 till 6:30. That is no exercise at all. So we need to think about what we're not doing and do something to redress it. And sorry, screen. The next screen really is just, don't be afraid of treatment. I find that a lot of communities just don't take their treatment. So again, like I said, it's your responsibility once you've left a GP surgery to either take on board or not take on board what you've been advised. And for some people, exercise is not enough. It's definitely needed. It's not enough to help their condition. So for example, people who've had a heart attack, there's a course of treatment that we would recommend to reduce the risk of having blood clots, to ensure that their blood pressure is in a really good control, to keep their cholesterol levels low. You could choose not to take it, but it wouldn't help. So don't be afraid of treatment. If you are afraid of treatment, think about why. Often people want alternative therapies, and if you want to do that, it's okay, but the NHS isn't always the place for that. And if you're going to go to alternative clinicians for that, make sure you go to someone who's reputable and going to be able to give you adequate advice. Some of the things that you might need to think about are cholesterol lowering tablets. So people might know them as statins, like atorvastatin or simvastatin. Managing other underlying conditions, because they all overlap. If you've got diabetes, you're more likely to have blood pressure and vice versa. But usually, if you just treat something in isolation, the other problem will just still be there. So we need to deal with everything. Look at, again, as the team mentioned before, you are a whole person. You need to treat everything. Don't just look at one thing in isolation. Like I've mentioned, medicines to reduce blood clots, surgery. Sometimes people need something, for example, called an angiogram to unblock the vessels, literally, like trying to unblock a drain. They need to put a little wire in, sometimes through the wrist or the groin, and thread it all the way to where the blockage is in the heart. Sometimes put a cage to keep the vessel open if it's collapsed or too stiff. So sometimes different treatments that can sound very scary, but we have skilled professionals in the UK who can talk you through it. Make sure you understand what all the side effects may be and what the benefits are. We've talked about problems with erections, and a lot of men have problems with erections. Medicine isn't the only answer. Exercise definitely does help. And often your mental health is what contributes to problems with erectile dysfunction. So making sure that you're addressing your mood, and also the fact that all of these problems that we've talked about before, with strokes, with heart attacks, with blood pressure, diabetes, they can all increase your risk of having a low mood. So all boroughs will have access to support for mental health. So mental health can impact on actually people's sexual performance. But things like Viagra, I've just put Viagra there, but there are other tablets out there you can actually get from the pharmacy. So you can go to a pharmacy, you can speak to them about your condition, and they can advise you on what's available. They are private prescriptions, so you may have to pay a small amount for these. There's only certain types of medication that are available on the NHS for erectile dysfunction, not all of them. So it's about, again, having that discussion with a doctor or a pharmacist about that to see what suits you. And we've talked about managing underlying conditions. Sorry, I just put it twice there. Okay. And I think this is my final slide, but it's about knowing your numbers. So I find it really odd that people would have diabetes for 20 years, 10 years, 5 years, and they don't know what their targets are supposed to be. So what you should expect is that every year you should have some kind of annual review. Every adult over 40 will be invited in for an NHS health check at some time, and that's kind of like an overall check to see what cholesterol is, check your blood pressure, check your sugar levels, things like that. So everyone should go if they're invited, because sometimes you can be walking around and you feel completely well. We're not trying to make you sick, but we find things incidentally which we need to treat. But if you do find, whether you're well or you're not, to be honest, I think you should know what your numbers are. Generally speaking, for the population, your blood pressure should be 140 over 90 or below. HbA1c or blood sugars, these are just measures that we use for monitoring diabetes usually. You should know if you're diabetic or not, because it has implications on your health. Know your cholesterol levels as well. It just gives you something to target. So if you find that your cholesterol levels are high, for example, for most people, they don't need treatment, but we do something called a Q risk. It's like a calculation that we do, and it takes into consideration your lifestyle, takes into consideration your smoking, your blood pressure, your alcohol intake, how fitness levels and such, and it gives you a calculation to decide if you need to have treatment. And I think the important thing to know is that in all of these things, we may recommend treatment, but you have an opportunity to try and intervene in your life and do something healthy and make changes. And I find that the best outcomes are those patients that go home and do the work. They do the exercise, they make the dietary changes, because you can see the end result. I often tell people there's no point in me monitoring your blood pressure again or your cholesterol levels again in 3 months if you're going to make 0 changes, because we're just going to be in the same place. So make a change. Don't do wishful thinking. Wishful thinking doesn't work. So know your numbers and know your function. So if you've got problems with erections, tell someone. I know it can be really difficult to start that conversation. And I know when I get patients in the room, especially men, and we have to have that conversation about erectile dysfunction, because it can often need a blood pressure check, but also an examination through the back passage, because often we want to check something called your prostate. And it's not the favorite exam for anyone, but people can feel really nervous about it. But for us, although it's a very sensitive area for you, it's something that we deal with every day. There is no part of the body that is out of bounds for us. There is nothing new that we've ever heard. So don't feel anxious that your GP is going to think that you're really weird, or your practice nurse is going to think you're weird. It's really normal for us to have to deal with these areas, especially sensitive parts of the body. So if that's what's blocking you from seeing a doctor, please don't let it be the block. And now as well, a lot of GP surgeries deal with e-consultation. So even if you can't say it with your mouth, you can often just type the problem and at least start the conversation. To have a check on your breathing. Can you walk up the stairs the same way without becoming breathless that you did 3 years ago? If there's any change in your breathing, you need to see someone. Your memory, are you forgetting things? Are people telling you that you're forgetting things? Do you not remember people's names? Have you started a journey and ended up in the wrong place? I had a man who I was so proud of. He was a Black African man. He was of his religion, he was Muslim, and he came with his wife. His wife had been telling him for some time that something wasn't right. You're forgetting something, you're forgetting names, you're forgetting things mid-conversation. And she encouraged him. And that's the role of friends and family, encouragement. She encouraged him regularly to come and see the doctor until he did. And he came to see me and he was so embarrassed about it. He felt that not having a memory problem meant he was less of a man. But I told him that this is a normal thing. This can happen. These are what we need to do. And often people worry about things like dementia. And it can be things like dementia, and it can be things like stroke that are the problem. But I always say it's better to know what's going on, because actually there might be something, and there usually is something that can at least help or help you get through it. And we went through everything and we did his bloods, and that is the role again of the community. He felt really encouraged and felt happy that he told me. I told him to go back to speak to his religious leaders about counselling and support, and he went away satisfied. So often it's not coming and saying, you know, we can resolve your problem, but it's making that first step so that you can get the right resources and support in place. Know about changes in sensation or feeling in your fingers and your feet. Again, if there's any change like that, or you get noticing pains when you're walking in your legs, for example, you need to get it looked at. It could be a sign that there's something wrong with your blood vessels. And also know your pulse, or know how your heart's beating. Sometimes people start to feel things like palpitations, like a fluttering of the heart, or you may notice an irregular heartbeat, or you feel your heartbeat's going faster. And I know everyone wears Fitbits. I know my husband's gonna scream, but everyone's got devices on, and I know it can tell you when things are a bit abnormal. It's better to go and get it checked so that you know what's going on, because these can be signs that you've got other problems that need addressing. And I think that's it. So it's just my takeaway point is, please keep your blood vessels happy by maintaining a healthy lifestyle and getting checks and knowing your body. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was really, really informative. And I actually really like the way you were talking about it, of thinking, you know, from the inside out. It is true. Often when I think of weight, I think, oh, I just want to look better. And actually, you're totally right. It should be about what's going on inside. So thank you. I'm going to jump straight in and go for our Q&A. So I hope that Lee and Thomas are still there as well. So if any of you have a question, obviously, if your video's on, you can put your hand up. But if you want, you can also put up the little Zoom hand by clicking on the reactions button. But I know that Jay, you put up quite a few questions in the chat, so I'm just going to ask you to unmute yourself, and then you can ask them directly. Please just ask the question, and then we can get through a lot of people. Thank you.
Thanks, Lucy. I should say good afternoon, everyone now. Thank you very, very much to Dr. Kuru, Thomas, and Lee for coming along to do the presentations. As a chairman of ARCC, one of the things that I am trying to whistle through my mind is, yes, we do want to bring about a change in the shift to tell people in our communities that we are here to now change your lifestyle, to put it bluntly. And in that change of lifestyle, what we're saying is that we want to make our communities healthier, stronger, and more happier. And the main issue is, you know, yes, we can guide them. Yes, we can, once we know them and what their issues are, we can support them, give them advice, whatever it is. But it is actually making those people come through the door, the engagement part, the first, if you like. Do you have any suggestions on how you might have done that in your life journeys that can help us?
So for me personally, I think change starts with vulnerability. So as leaders and community people, we have to express our vulnerabilities first and show that we're willing to be open and honest about it. And part of my journey now on online sources is me showing that, okay, I can help you with something, but I'm not perfect either. Even though I'm helping you, I've lived this problem. I am overcoming it myself and still living it now. And even though I want to support you, like, you support me as well. So obviously I'm not a doctor. I'm just somebody trying to help people help themselves. And in turn, they help me, because we can all advise each other, as we said, like we're all at different points of our journey. But me sitting down with you, Jay, and having a conversation, I bet you have so much experience and knowledge, but we wouldn't have that conversation if one of us wasn't vulnerable in the first place.
Yeah.
The same as Lee's grieving program, the same as Jog and Jam, the same as what Dr. Carew does as well. It starts with us being vulnerable, and then one person walks through the door, then two, and then three. But until that vulnerability is shown, the door might as well be locked.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And thanks a lot for that, because on the presentation that Dr. Kuru did, I like the idea about the last one, and the most favorite one is the exercise is cheap. You can do it. You can start it. It's all down to you, and that's all you need is a motivation to get started.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, but I do smoke. I have cut it down. I do drink alcohol.
That's good.
But I have cut it down.
Yeah.
And it all started with after attending the expert patient program myself, because I wanted to learn myself about how to control my body with diabetic and long-term condition. And that has had an impact, because through the exercise plan, which I started with that program, slowly building up my fitness, it's actually helped me to cut down a little bit on smoking and a little bit down on alcohol take. So I would support that, even if there is a fear that, you know, the lifestyle is going to change, and we're not going to make you stop completely. If you can, if you love smoking, carry on. But what you will have is exercise would help you to actually reduce it, if that's the goal you want to achieve at the end of the day.
If I can just go back to your original question, I think as an organization, while I agree that definitely showing vulnerability helps and it allows people to find some sort of connection and bring them in. But I think from an organization perspective, if you're trying to get people through the door and you want to create some sort of a program that's going to benefit the community that you serve, the best way to do that is through co-design. So it's about getting a sample of people together, or a group of people, filling a room as you do for your coffee mornings when you meet physically, and finding out from the individuals what they want and where their needs lie. Because sometimes when we're caught up in our structures, we can start creating a narrative rather than allowing the narrative to develop itself. And I think I'm a firm believer in a counseling theory called the self theory. And what that dictates is that each individual has a solution to their own problems, but sometimes they just need some guidance in drawing it out. So I feel that through the co-designing and having people in the room sitting down and speaking about their problems, their issues, and their solutions, because sometimes those same solutions are seated down in those seats before you as well. What can you pull together? Because when the community develops the program is a lot stronger and a lot more supported.
Yeah, I was gonna
Lee,
sorry, I was gonna agree with that and just say that for me, I think the key thing is collaboration. So what we found in well, definitely in like communities, is that there's a lot of good work. And if you think about Croydon, there's this, you know, you're doing something great, Croydon BME is doing something great, my church might be doing something great, someone else might be doing something, but they're all doing it so separately. But I think actually what we need to do to kind of break this cycle of, you know, people not coming to events or not engaging is actually work together. You know, when we work together, as you know, you can imagine if all the groups, all the community groups in Croydon would get together and do this, you know, this health hub, you just automatically get more people involved in it, and then there's a bit more of a movement and get more engagement. And then, like you just mentioned, as you talk to people, you get different ideas. Like talking to you today, I never knew half the things you did existed, but now I know I'm going to go and tell someone about it. So you get this exponential growth. So we just need to work together. There is no reason why any of us, with all of the same agenda to improve health, improve well-being, why we cannot work together. And when you do that, you start to you know, get the audience of the people that make a difference, the people that provide funding, the people that make the rules and regulations, and then things start to change for communities on a larger scale.
Thank you. I'm just going to pass over to Prasa, because you very patiently had your hand up, so thank you. Go ahead with your question.
Yeah, this is regarding the blocked vessels. See, I have a condition of high blood pressure for a long time. I wanted to know if there is a way to find out through the CT scan or MRI scan whether my blood vessels are blocked, or is there any way to find it?
So you wouldn't routinely, so if someone's got blood pressure or any kind of heart problem, you wouldn't necessarily routinely get a scan or intervention to check how blocked it is. So it's really dependent on symptoms. So blood pressure alone would not be a reason to check your blood vessels. But
I had it for many years.
Yeah.
And recently they have added an extra tablet as well to lower my blood pressure. Okay.
Yeah.
So it suddenly increased. And so now I need to take an extra tablet for lifelong, which I'm very concerned about. Why do we need to take tablets for lifelong? Because there must be a way to mitigate the problem and then avoid taking the medicine, isn't it?
So we can't always avoid taking it. Mitigate it by making healthy lifestyle choices. So what I found is that sometimes you can have people who are really, really healthy. Actually, they do a lot of exercise and they have made the right health choices, but they still got blood pressure problems. And what I say is that if it was not for the healthy healthy choices you're making, things would have been worse. Sometimes it's just the luck of the draw. It's just the condition that we have. But blood pressure or all these other conditions are not like an infection. So with an infection, you get a course of treatment and then that treatment is all you need and your infection is resolved. But because blood pressure is actually a manifestation of something that's been going on for a long time, either genetics, because sometimes people are, it's just that way. If you've got blood pressure, your children are more likely to have blood pressure problems, for example. But because that damage has already sometimes been done to the blood vessels, usually in blood pressure, it's because they're stiffer. And then you have the added problems of them being maybe blocked by cholesterol problems. It's not reversible. So that stiffness is not necessarily reversible. So you end up needing to have blood pressure tablets for a long time to control it. But what I sometimes found, because I used to work in nursing homes, is that patients who were maybe in the much later part of their years, maybe 80s or 90s, that sometimes their blood pressure just started to naturally drop. And it may be because naturally they don't eat as much or they're just not as active. We don't really know the reason why. So sometimes at the end of life, you may not need to use it so much. It's just one of those conditions like diabetes that you need from the long term. But if you make healthy lifestyle choices, you may find that actually that's enough to reduce what you're on versus stop it altogether. So, use today as your starting point. Think about, what are you doing? How much exercise are you really doing? What are you
Not
really doing?
Not much.
Well, that's what I would say, because I think sometimes people want, they don't want the treatment, but I'm like, what else are you doing? What options are you giving me? So, and it's not only you, and I speak to myself, do some exercise, join Lee and the team and just do something really, really simple. Run up and down your stairs. Or one thing that I used to do is if I'm watching TV, which is everybody's problem sometimes, or even YouTube, when they've got a break, when they do the adverts, jog on the spot during the advert. So you know that at least for 5 minutes you've done something, and then you can sit down and continue with your Netflix, wherever it is, but use that as a starting point. And then you'll find that it improves it. It may not stop it, but it will improve it. It makes a massive difference.
Yeah, now with this change of our lifestyles because of the pandemic, now we don't even go out even for groceries, right? So our lifestyles have tremendously reduced, the active lifestyles. So I think it's having an effect on our lives, I think, health-wise.
So we just have to adapt. We have to adapt. People had to adapt during wars. People had to adapt through other things. Let's just do things different. There's amazing parks in South London,
Yes,
we just don't realize them.
That we did a lot of walking we did recently.
Yeah, exactly. So let us know how things go in a couple of months.
Thank you. I'm going to jump in only because we are basically at 12:30. So I'm just going to pass over to Naeem, who can do our raffle. For those of you who haven't been to a virtual coffee morning before, basically, if you win our raffle, we send you a little coffee hamper. Obviously, because we're posting it to you, please make sure that if you win, you send your your address to Naeem, and I'll put his email and phone number into the chat now. So go ahead, Naeem.
Thank you, Lizzie. Yeah, so I've got everyone's names written down on the sides. So let's just quickly shuffle before we proceed. I'm going to select 3 winners, and we will post it sometime during next week. So if everyone can get in touch with me before next week, it would be fabulous. Let's start. Right, let's see who's the first winner.
Ah, well done, Margaret.
That's Margaret. Well
Well
done.
done.
We'll spin it second time.
Yay! Well, I think
Congratulations.
I think that's well deserved. Well deserved.
Right, last winner. So it's the last one.
Oh,
Jay is lucky, very lucky.
Well
Jay,
done.
Jay, you've won this before. You're lucky.
Well
Lizzie,
done.
Lizzie, let me just say something, please, because this is not fair. I can't win the prize 3 coffee mornings running, okay? So I would like the prize to be shared with Lee and Thomas, who
Okay.
were kind enough to come along to give us the talk. Really enjoyed it. And if you need to make another one, then I'll pay for it.
Oh,
No problem. Well, thank you very much for donating
you.
your one, Jay.
Thank you.
Margaret, Dr. Kuru, Lee and Thomas, you'll see in the chat, it says contact Naeem to claim your prize. So you can either call him or email him, but he won't magically know your address, right? So please do email him your address, because otherwise we just don't know how to get it to you. So
I can
please.
collect mine from the ARCC office.
So basically we're working mostly out of the hub at the moment, so don't go to the office.
Oh, even better. That's even better.
Okay,
You can
good.
get mine for me as well, please.
Okay, well, that's good. We only have to post 2 of them, so that's fine. So just finally, before I say my thank yous, I'm just going to let you guys know when our next coffee morning is, and then we're all set, really. So we've got one on Wednesday, the 1st of September. So just to make note, obviously we're not having one in August. It is summer holidays for a lot of us with families and children. So yeah, next time for a virtual coffee morning will be Wednesday, the 1st of September. And that one's going to be about blood pressure and know your numbers, which I think fits in really nicely with Dr. Kuru, who was saying, you know, it's important to know our numbers. So that's really good. And we are having our weekly dance therapies on Mondays. And then after the dance, we have our community chats with everyone. So if you do feel like you want to be part of a group and get that activity going, like all of our speakers have been talking about, please do join us there. Our food bank does still go ahead. Just to note that we're doing collection rather than delivery. And if you know of someone, a neighbour, a friend, a family member that would benefit, then we are currently registering people for the food bank. So we're more than welcome to have more people basically join up for that. So please let people know. And yeah, more movements. So that's really good. This is one is on Fridays. You will register via Naeem, but if you if you can put up with hearing me a bit more, it is me that teaches that class. I've been doing Pilates for years, so I'm very happy to welcome you if you'd like to come and do Pilates with me at 11 a.m. on Fridays. And this one's really cool. I'm a little bit jealous that I work during the daytime, so I can't go myself. But to be aware, this literally starts tomorrow. So if you want to register for our 6-week course, which is all about sort of being out in the environment, learning how to cultivate and consume your own vegetables, things like that, you do need to register by 4 p.m. today with Naeem. So please do, if you do think someone will be interested, then just get hold of them today. And you'll have noticed I put in the chat earlier, but if you are someone that is thinking, oh, I haven't checked my blood pressure or my pulse or my weight, my height, my BMI, my diabetes risk, any of that recently, then we'd love for you to come along to our health check event on Thursday, the 29th. It is at the Broad Green Hub, which is on Keeley Road. So if you know where the Central Shopping Centre is, basically, if you can get there, then you're going to find it. So it's really central Croydon, super easy to get to. It's obviously for free. And the only thing is, just make sure you book your slot. I've put the booking link into the chat of this Zoom. But if you can't find that, obviously you can just email or call us and we'll send you the link. Just for COVID reasons, we can't have you all arriving at the same time to have your blood pressure done. And that's it. You've done brilliantly for another one of our coffee mornings. And I just want to say thank you so, so much to Lee and Thomas and to Dr. Kuru, because I think everyone can agree that they gave some amazing, fantastic information. So thank you so much. I hope that we get to speak and learn from you more in the future. But otherwise, see you whenever we see you.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye. Thanks again.
Bye.